Hi, I'm Jim with Agape Bibles. Today I want to show you a carry-on bag that I designed and built, and I think it turned out to be a beautiful bag. So let me introduce you to the new bag. This bag is made out of cowhide. It measures 17.5 inches long. It is 8 inches deep and 8 inches wide. It's a beautiful carry-all bag. It has a brass zipper and plenty of room for your items that you want to take with you. I call it the weekender bag. The bag has 2 leather handles. It has an extra support that's sewn in and riveted in so that the bottom and sides remain firm. And I'm going to show you how to make this bag. Stay tuned. To build this bag, we've got to have our main body, which is this bottom piece. Got to have 2 end pieces. 4 handle supports. I'll be doing more with these later. And 2 straps. And those are the components of this bag, plus there will be a zipper. The next step is I need to skive the edges of the end pieces and the main body. Forgot to mention that this leather is an oil tan, and it's about 4.5 ounce leather. And not only were the pieces cut out of this type of hide, I also am using another leather. And this is 6 to 8 ounce leather. It's a little bit thicker, but this will be used on the inside to add support to the body of the bag. So those are the pieces that we need. So I'm out here in my garage where I keep my Cobra MP4 skiver. And today I'm skiving 2 end pieces for my carry-all bag. So let's get to skiving this rascal. So we've got the edges skived. So when I roll it over, it'll be a nice clean connection. So now I've got to skive down the bag itself, the edge pieces. I've already skived one side. I'm not going to bore you with doing both sides, but I will do the other side. The MP4 gives a beautiful skive, and it saves a lot of time. Yes, you can hand skive. I'm not that good at it, and I love my MP4. It does such a beautiful job, and saves so much time skiving. I've skived the bag body and the two end pieces. And the reason for doing this is because of the thickness of the leather. And when I sew the bags together, we've got to be able to roll these edges. So by skiving the leather down, you can see the difference of thicknesses. That will allow us to sew the bag together and have a nice, beautiful seam. So now I'm ready to build my handle, or the two handles. I've cut my handle straps, and these pieces will fit inside the bottom, and they'll be glued, and that'll add a support for the handle when I sew and I rivet the handle to the bag. So now I just got to attach them. So now what I've done is gone through both my straps. I've marked the center mark at the bottoms. And I've gone about 1/4 of an inch and drawn a line. And this is where my supports will be glued in. Now what we need to do is measure the straps on each end to find the center line, so that they'll line up for sewing. Right about there. And then I draw a reference line. I don't think that's centered. I don't believe I got that line centered. Oops, big boo-boo. We all make mistakes, but try to find your mistakes before you make a glue boo-boo where you can't readjust it. So now we're good. I'll double check my lines, and then we will attach our internal supports. Now you can glue this using contact cement. Glue the supports to the strap. I will be sewing this to make sure that I've got support in here. Glue's messy, so what I've chose to do is use double-sided sticky tape And this tape is a 1/2 inch, and I will cut 4 pieces. I've already got some cut over here. Very simple to do. What I do is just place a double sticky tape, because this is not going to be seen right there, and then I'm going to need a piece about like that. Take an awl to get the edge out. And I've marked the center line down here at the bottom. Put it on that line. And just bring it up, eyeball it. So now I've got that secured. For that tape right there be hanging out, it's no big deal, because this is all going to be folded over when I make the handle. So now I'm going to do that on the other side, and then on the other strap. So my straps are going to have a rivet in it to rivet to the bag. Plus it will be sewn. So to place the rivet, I'm coming up from the edge, from the bottom edge, up about 1 inch, and then centering it from the edges here. And I made a mark with a pin. This will be hidden by the hole and by the rivet. So I did this on both straps and punched holes. So I use is just a wood piece of, well, it's plywood, and then I've got my punch. Come in here and set it. And you got a hole. So as we're ready to mount this onto the bag, got our rivet hole, and now what we need to do is take and sew a line of stitch down here to secure this to the strap. So now I've got to get a sew line down from the top down here to about 1/4 inch up of the hole. So what I did, I measured the about 5 inches from the top to the bottom here. So I know I need to start my sew there. So I measured up 5 inches and took this little tool. It's got kind of a blunt creaser on it, and just lightly marked 5-inch mark. Then, because of my rivet head, I need to stop the stitch roughly about 1/4 inch, give or take. It's up to you to figure out where you want your stitches to stop. So then I marked that on all the ends. And then I set my edge guide for my sewing machine up to be center. So as I run the stitch line from here to here, it will be centered. So the next step is to go over to the machine and sew this rascal up. So as you can see, we're still centered here. It's stuck down. The holes are through. We're not going to put any rivets in here yet. So we'll see you at the machine. So we're getting ready to sew the support to the strap. I've got my 5-inch line marked here. Got my edge guide set for a halfway stitch line. So now I'm just going to line up the needle, and that's where I want it. Drop the foot, secure my thread, bury the needle, and now I'm going to back stitch 1 stitch. Come forward, and now we'll just sew this line. Now my stop line is right here, so I'm going to bring my foot right to this mark, and then I know the next stitch over, the needle should bury itself right close to that line. Right there, I'm on the line with my foot. I'm going to take a stitch, and then 1 more stitch. We'll put the needle close to where I want it, and then I'm going to do back stitch, 3 back stitches. And we got a nice straight line. And do the other side and do the other strap, and we'll move on to the next step. So the next step is to fold the handle over to make a nice handle, and then sew the handle together. Now you can do it several ways. I prefer to use sticky tape, double-sided, less messy than contact cement where you've got to glue each side down. Now where I want to terminate that is roughly about 3 inches from the bottom. So I'm going to stitch up to about 3 inches, and I put a little mark at 3 inches on each side and drew my lines here so I knew how much sticky tape to use. Just want to make sure I can see those lines. Looks 3 inches. 3 inches there. 3 inches there. And pull this tape. Perfect. Take some clip and clip it right here. Get that started. That didn't work out, did it? Well, I can fix that. Get a bigger hammer. I'll take a little little pressure off of it. There we go. And I'll put a big boy clip on that one. Just to hold her in place. Whoop, that didn't work. Never said it was going to be easy. Okay, I need to get another little clip on that. Well, that's not easy. Okay, take this over the sewing machine and sew up this edge. I'll be right back. Well, I had a little malfunction with the iPhone, and it was called, I forgot to charge it up. So I didn't get any of the video of sewing the edges together. But anyway, I've got them sewn, and then I sanded all the edges down, and now I'm burnishing them, and I'm using what I call my magic sauce, but it's just a bottle of Tokeno. This is great stuff to put a finish on the on an edge of the leather. So I just take my finger and just kind of dab it in. Oh, and I did, after I sanded, I dyed it with a dark brown dye, so the edges are a little bit darker brown than what they would have been if I just left them raw. So after you rub a little Tokeno in, take a piece of canvas and crank up the old elbow grease and go after it. When I sanded this, I've got a Dremel, and I put, like, I think it was 120 grit sandpaper in it, and it sands it down pretty good, pretty smooth. But hopefully you can see the difference. This is where the Tokeno has been applied. It's nice and smooth. And this is the raw edge that's just been dyed. So I'll go over the edges, both straps, and it'll be ready to sew. So this bag is going to require to have some support, because if you don't have a support in this bag, once you load it up, the bottom is going to want to pull, which will distort the bag. So What I'm using is a piece of American buffalo, also known as bison, and it's a very strong leather, but yet it is supple and soft. And I will be gluing this to the inside of the bag and riveting. So I'm going to have 6 rivets, top, bottom, and middle. So what I've done is measured 5 inches from each side and drawn a line. Then I found the center line and drew 2 little marks intersecting the 5-inch line, and that's where my 2 rivets will go that will attach to the bottom of the bag. Then the bag will fold up like this, which will support the bag. And I measured in 1 1/8 inches from the top and the bottom, and marked that, and then I took my punch and I punched my holes. So now I needed to transfer these holes into my bag. This will be coated with contact cement, and it will be cemented into the bag, and I'll use rivets to really secure it so it won't move. So I've already done the transfer to my bag. What I did is found the center line of the center and drew a line, and then I placed my support piece in. I marked a little mark here, and I lined that up with the line I drew from my center, and then I took a pin and marked each one of these holes. Then I took my punch and I punched these holes in the bag, and I also went ahead and punched the holes for my handle that I had previously marked when I cut the bag out. Then the next step was to make my zipper opening to attach my zipper. I'll be using a brass zipper, and that will be sewn in here, and then I will close the bag by hand stitching these edges here on both sides here. After I cut this, I took it out and used my Dremel to smooth the edges, and the next step is to burnish these. And once I get all that burnished, I'll be back. For the zipper, I've cut the zipper notches here, and I've used a half round, I think it's a 1-inch punch. But I buttered the ends up together. Oop, there we go. And then I punched the start of the zipper here on both ends, and then I lined up a straight edge to connect both lines and cut the notch out. This bag you will have to hand stitch the ends together once you install the zipper. And I've already lined up my hand stitch holes and put them in so they're ready to go. The next step is to take the zipper and install the zipper. And for the zipper, I did not cut it to length. I left it overhanging on both sides, and I'll show you why I did that later. Now I need to take and put double-sided sticky tape on this zipper so I can attach it to the bag and then sew the zipper in on each side. And there's a rhyme to my reason for having it a lot of excess here. So let's get that done. So I've applied double-sided sticky tape to one end of the bag, and I left enough space here so that the sticky tape doesn't go over the edge. And now let's apply it to the other side. Also, before I did this step, I did sand these edges, dyed them with a dark brown, and burnished them, and put a little of the toconol on the side here to keep the fibers down. So I got my sticky tape in. Now the reason that I cut the zipper long is because when I sew, I'm going to unzip it and sew one edge and sew the other edge, and they'll be halfway. Then when I close the bag up, it'll catch all this. But I have to have a long tail so I can put the zipper in. If I would cut it to length, I would never be able to get the zipper in once it's been sewn. So that's the reason that I did that. Now to install the zipper, zippers usually freak a lot of people out. They used to scare me, but I've done so many zippers that it's second nature anymore. Just don't let it bother you. They're pretty easy to work with. Practice, practice, practice. So to line this up, I want these edge pieces to be right in the middle of that zipper. And then there's a little line on the zipper itself. And I just want to meet the leather to one of the lines on the zipper. And there we go, we got one side in. And now, while the zipper's together and the teeth will be matching, we want to stick the other side down. So peel this tape off. These to match up exactly on that cut. And it does right there. That pulled out a little bit more than what I wanted. this stuck down. I'll come back and align that up better. Okay. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is unzip it so I can go sew it. Very simple. We'll be very careful that you don't take it off that sticky tape, because that's your alignment. So everything's still lined up, and now we can take it over to the sewing machine and sew it up. I don't sew the bag zipper all in one piece, is because the bag is very big and cumbersome, and it's very tough to make the turn because of the throat of the machine. I find it easier to sew the zipper in each side while it's flat, and then I hand stitch, and it's just perfect that way. Okay, so I've started the machine and sewn around this little curve here, and now it's just sew a straight line on this zipper. And what I'm doing is taking the edge of the walking foot and placing it right on the edge of this leather to get my straight line. I do have a drop down guide, but because of the teeth in there, it's just easier for me to kind of eyeball it. This we just don't get too fast with, because we want to make sure that we're getting a straight line. So we just take our time while we're stitching this baby up. We're not forcing the leather, we're just letting the machine walk it, and we're just kind of guiding it. So as we get down here to this curve, what I want to do is try to maintain the same distance that we've sewn it with, and then on our first hole that we've punched for our hand stitching, we want to get that needle into that hole and then come out on the edge so it all looks uniform when we put the two ends together. So we just take our time. So I've got the zipper all sewn in, and as I said, I will hand stitch the ends later on in the project. But for right now, I need to glue the support in to the bag. And I've got my holes cut, I've got the rivet stuck through here. I'm using a copper rivet. They're number 9 and they're 1/2 inch. And then here's the locking rings. So what I'm going to do now is I need to trace around here, so when I remove this, to apply the glue, I can get it inside and I won't get any of the glue on the exterior or the interior of the flesh to the bag. So now if I can find my pen, let me do a little tracing here. Just very lightly. Well, it'd help if I get the pen out. Goodness gracious. So I've got my marks all marked out, and I'll apply glue on here. Now I'm going to leave the rivets in here, so when I get it, the glue, I can put that down and I'll know it's not going to move and it's going to be exactly where it needs to be. So I'm not going to bore you guys with me applying glue, and as soon as I get it glued and the glue set, I'll be back. Oh, before I glue this, I marked in about 1/4 inch on around the sides, because I don't want the glue to come out exactly to the edges. This is going to be sewn anyway, and I just don't want to take a chance of getting too much glue and then it spills over on the flesh side. So I've kind of shortened the distance by 1/2 inch, and this is my glue line. And I'm going to do the same thing to the bag. Just move this line in about 1/4 inch. Okay, I got all my glue put on the bag, and usually you have to wait for the doggone stuff to dry, and since we had such large areas, it didn't take long to dry. And I've got my glue, it's all dry on my my support. So now I'm gonna lay this on here, line up my holes. I'm going to take my roller and roll it out. So we're good. Next step in securing this is now we got to lock the rivets. I got a small anvil that I'll use to set this, so I need to go get that before I do anything else. I'll be back. So here's my little anvil that I use to set my rivets with. And use my little rivet setter. So I'm going to do the other 4 of them. I'll be back. So the next step is to sew the handles on and rivet them in. I've done one side, but I'll show you how I did this on the other side. So you've already had your handles made. You burnished the edges, they're all ready to go. So I put double-sided sticky tape on the inside, so once I get it in position, I can stick it down and it will hold it so it won't turn and be lopsided, so it'll be square. I've already, through other processes, I've punched my holes in my handle, and I've punched the holes in the bag where they're going to fit. So then what you need to do is take your rivets, stick them in. These are number 9 copper. I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Number 9 copper rivets. So those go in, and you want to decide what side you want up. This is the pretty side of the sewing, so I want that handle to be up and the back side of the sewing to be down. Don't get it kinked up. So once you get the way you want it, you put your rivet in the holes. I'll show you on this side right here. Once I get one side in, then I want to square it off to make sure that the handle is on perfectly straight. So I take a little straight edge tool and I grab my square. Come up to where this is going to be perfectly square. Then what I will do is take my sticky tape, peel my sticky tape off, and I'll stick that down, and then I'll turn it over and pound the rivets down and rivet them in, and then I will sew the edges. So let me get that done, and I'll be back. I've sewn the support, the bison support to the bag and sewed that all around. So the next step was got it all zipped up, and these ends, now I've got to hand stitch these. So once I get these hand stitched, we'll be ready to put the end pieces in. I'll be back. The reason that I left a tab on the one side is so I can start my zipper and close it up. Because I sewed the zipper half and half. To make this turn on a sewing machine is kind of difficult for a big bag, and I have found it just easier to sew half of it and come up to the stitch hole where I'll be hand stitching and terminate that sew on both sides of it. And so I've already sewn up the other side. So on this side, with my hand sewing, is I go down on both sides, and then I cross and come back up the opposite side. So that starts my stitch for a cross stitch. And then what I will do is take, as I sew, this will cross over, this thread will cross over here, and that one will cross over here, and then they'll go back down and come back up the same hole on the opposite side, and just continue to cross stitch until I'm finished. So I've taken a thread and I've cross stitched, coming from the top hole, crossing over to the next hole. Same thing here, coming out of this one, going back down to this one, and then this one will go underneath and come back up this hole to repeat to come down to this hole. Go down and I'll come across and then go back up the previous hole. Take this one and it'll go up the previous hole. Go down the next hole on the adjacent side to get the cross stitch. So I'm on my last hole here, and when I put the ends on, this will be all on the inside. So what I'm going to do is come back up like I normally would, and this one that went down on that side is going to come back up on this hole over here. And then I'm going to go back down. This one going to go over for a straight stitch. Goes down. And this one is going to go down. knot in it to secure it. Cut my ends off. And then burn the edges so they won't fray. Now, when I put the end pieces in, it'll all roll underneath, and you won't see that, so that's good. The zipper has been installed. So now what you need to do is turn the bag inside out. And what we're doing here is doing a test fit of the end piece to the bag. And so I'm using clips to hold it all in place to make sure it's all going to fit before I staple it. You can sew with just using the clips, but I found that they pop off and they just don't secure well enough. So I use a staple gun and staple the two sides together, and it makes it a lot easier to sew. So now I've got the bag all stapled, and it's ready to go to the sewing machine. These staples, after I sew, will be taken out. So we're going to take about 1/4 inch seam. Let's go to the sewing machine. So now that we've got the bag all stapled, I got the guide set at about 1/4 inch for a 1/4 inch seam. Ready to rock and roll. Whoop. Get the threads out. Just take your time. Doing the corners are a little bit tricky, but you just need to take your time, go with the flow. And we're back to the starting point. I'm getting that hole where I first started. And we're done. Now, yes, you can hand sew this. And I have hand sewn them. Very time consuming. I'd rather do a machine on it. But it takes a little practice to be able to do a machine instead of hand sewing. So now we need to turn the bag inside or right side out. So after about 10 hours, we have a finished product with a gorgeous, absolutely beautiful weekender carry-all bag. Thank you all for watching.